All right, everyone. Welcome to MVP Office Hours number 36.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I know. Moving along here. Welcome back to those who were at Dreamforce last week and hopefully recovered. I know it was a great week for me, so I hope it was the same for everybody else. And hopefully, if you have any questions about some of the stuff you saw there, we're here to help as MVP. So with that, let me just intro you to MVP Office Hours if this is your first time. So really, MVP Office Hours is a lot like the Answers community, but live. So we have a couple methods on the call to ask your question. You can either speak up if we're, in a dead space. You can raise your hand in the meeting, and we'll call on you as soon as we get through the question we're on. There's also a chat, so you can chat your question in there, and then we'll get to you as soon as we can there as well. So all those ways. So because it's an open line, all we ask is that you just mute your line during the call so that it's easy to hear questions and answered. And with that, I have some awesome MVPs on the call with me today. So if you guys can just go ahead and raise your hand. I can pick most of you out, but I don't trust my eyes that much. So I'll try to call you out here. All right. So even though he's on mute, maybe – okay. So I'll go and we have Bill Greenhall on the line. He's on mute, and I'm going to intro to him. He's just a handsome lad who knows a lot about a lot of things and is going to do a great job helping us out today. So, all right. And then the next one, not that the rest of the MVPs are not, good-looking people. I'm just saying Bill's a good-looking lad. All right, on to Brendan. Brendan, do you want to give us who you work for in kind of your area of expertise?
Hey guys, I'm Brendan Conroy. I work for Monday Call. It's a consultancy in San Francisco. I'm Salesforce MVP, 2 certifications, and I'm also a session leader for ADM 201 on the Salesforce Certification Study Group.
All right. Mr. Hoax, do you want to give us that same info there? Daniel, you there? All right. Well, we'll just say Daniel he's one of our developer guys. He knows a lot about development. So if you have any questions, we can get him on it. He hit hang up instead of unmute. That's funny. All right. So let's go to Deepa. Deepa, you want to give us who you work for in your area of expertise?
Absolutely. This is Deepa Patel of Salesforce MVP. I am a Salesforce consultant with Hallock Consulting, which is my company. And I am the East Bay User Group leader here in the Bay Area, and I also run the Salesforce Certification Study Group on the Success Community, and I hope you guys got a chance to come and meet us at Dreamforce.
Awesome. Thanks, Deepa. And last but certainly not least, Marty, you want to introduce yourself in your area?
Sure, Jared. This is Marty Chang with Solomon Consulting, and my specific areas of expertise are around technical development and application integration.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know, there is a YouTube video out there now of Marty's rapping skills. And it's if you haven't seen it, I'll post it to MVP Office Hours, and you can watch it over the weekend. It's pretty awesome. I would say, pun intended, it's off the Chang, if you know what I'm saying. So I like to use that pun as much as I can.
I want to see the link on the MVP water cooler, Marty.
Yeah, we'll post it. We'll get it posted out there. I'm pretty sure it's going to go viral. So
definitely
all right.
A scary thought. All right, thanks, Jared.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So let's kick it off with the questions Who wants to start us off? Go ahead and speak up. This is the perfect time to just speak up. Squire, go ahead. You ready?
So I just need a kind of a confirmation on something. So one of our requests has been to limit at our contact layer, limit the campaign list, so effectively the campaign history related list, to only active campaigns. I'm aware that you can't filter currently declaratively through that through the related list, so I assume I'm going to have to write a Visualforce page. And so I started by writing my class, and when I test my class and call it from the anonymous window, everything works just great. But for reasons that I can't quite figure out, when I then relate it to my Visualforce page, nothing returns. And so the two questions that I have is, one, my assumption is that of building this in Visualforce is really the only way to get that limited list. Would that be a true statement for anyone on the call?
Yes.
Okay, I assumed so, but I just want to make sure. So the follow-up question is, the assumption I'm having is that I really only need a custom controller. The standard controller is not going to help me because I have to drill down below I have to go from contact to contact member or campaign member and then back up to campaign. I can't get there through a custom controller or a standard controller. So I build a custom controller to write this thing. Am I forgetting something? Is there something really obvious that a reason that I should start, or a point that I should start to try to understand why from the Visualforce phase it's not generating the data that I expected from my class when the class tests fine via the just a call of the class? And I know that's kind of vague without seeing it or knowing a lot more details. I just kind of need a north, south, east, west type direction to figure out what I'm forgetting.
Are you Squire? Are you running this as your own admin user, or are you running what's the user context?
When I'm testing, you mean?
Both, I guess, when you're testing and when you're actually running, opening the page and invoking the controller.
I'm running it as me in both cases. I haven't I moved it out of a sandbox yet, but I've got the test data built, and like I said, the return looks like the debugs all return the data that I would have expected. But then when the Visualforce calls it, it doesn't return any data. It says that it's like I'm getting no returns, even though it appears that it should be doing a return.
So you verified in the debug log that the query is returning 0 rows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. The query is returning the rows that I would have expected when I pass it like a variable into that method. When I pass it an ID, and, I'm assuming the Visualforce controller is going to pick up the ID from contact, push it into my class as my variable.
When you say you assume that your controller is going to pick up the ID, you're saying like a URL parameter?
No. So maybe that's where I'm lost a little bit. So I've built like real generic Visualforce lists using a standard controller to pick up related list information. I even to the point of I initially just built a Visualforce page using just the standard contact controller, and I can go down all the way to the campaign list that contact's related to. But what I can't do is write that filter without writing the SQL or the SOQL into it. Maybe I'm because I have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I guess maybe I'm just curious if the issue is that you're passing the parameter, like when you open up a page, by default the ID, that's the context for what you're doing, is passed as like a URL parameter.
Right.
Is that and are you? I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding, but you're.
Good music.
Somebody put us on hold.
Let me try to figure that out real quick.
But I'll keep talking for a second here.
Yeah.
So are you relying on that same mechanism here?
I hadn't really thought about it that far. Like I said, I mean, from my standard using the standard controller, I just assumed it knew its context by calling the Visualforce page in the controller, that it knew context. and I'm not
Right.
actually, I'm not like identifying anything and passing it in. So is that
I mean, it sounds like that might be the issue. That because it's specific to a contact, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to get data specific. So if you're trying to get data specific to a contact, typically when you extend or you use a standard controller, the ID of the contact gets passed in as the ID, like it just says ID equals in the URL. And if you're writing a custom controller, your custom controller is going to do that automatically. You have to program logic into it to find that parameter, parse it, and then store it as your contact ID.
so if I start with the standard contact controller and then extend into my class, I still will have to pass the ID, but the standard controller will at least have my starting point. Is that the piece that I'm missing?
Yeah. I mean, it's I guess it's pretty much the same. I would say it's about the same level of work. Because with the standard controller, you'll end up having to grab the ID by invoking, or by calling like standard controller.get record ID.
Right.
I guess it's a little bit cleaner than writing custom code to read a page parameter.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose that. Yeah, I guess that would be easier.
So just one last follow up, and then I'll play some more. So I think I started with that, and was having issues, and I immediately thought that I had done too much. So then, if let's assume that I'm getting the ID in and that's working, but the Visualforce still isn't getting my return. What would be the other thing for me to evaluate? Like I feel like maybe my return is. I'm pretty new to it, but I feel like maybe like my return is still within like a private or like a void method or something, so it doesn't know how to get it back out. Is that a likely issue as well?
I mean, it's possible if your code's not returning values that can be used by other parts of your code. I suppose like it could get stuck somewhere, but
okay.
I'm not sure that's the. Yeah, I guess Squire. I mean, I think is your code something that you'd be able to post?
Oh yeah, it's really generic. I mean, like I said, I'm at the very
Okay.
tip. And I did on developer forums, and just haven't seen anybody looking at it. So I thought I'd bug the brains. I feel like maybe what I would do is maybe I'll focus more on making sure that ID parameter is getting where I think it's getting, and then circle back after I'm certain that that's working.
I don't feel like this is going to be too difficult. I think it would just be easier for me to, or for any of us to see the code. I guess I would say, could you post the link to your question to the MVP office hours and just mention me?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch who I was actually speaking to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is Marty Chang.
Marty. Yeah, I'll do that right away here while we're listening. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty. All right. We have a next question here, which is a good question by, forgive me if I don't say this right, but Jayesh was curious how does one become an MVP? Does one of the MVPs want to kind of give an answer to that?
Sure. Where are you located, Jayesh?
I'm in Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, so there are multiple ways. So the first thing that's sort of not required, but what I would say attribute to being an MVP is community service. All the MVPs that have been appointed or have been awarded have been very active in the community to help people, just like the MVP office hours, answering questions on Twitter with the #AskForce hashtag, answering questions on LinkedIn groups, answering questions on the Answers community. That's the first place to start. Like, as you start answering a lot of questions, your rankings go up. Participating in user groups. If you are in South Carolina, I would reach out to your local user group and ask the user group leaders questions on how can I help, and start getting involved. And over time, as your activities add up, your visibility will increase and MVPs are actually nominated by the members of the community. So someone has to submit a nomination when the nomination forms come out before every quarter. During every release, a new batch of MVPs are brought in. But the key requirement is you have to have a minimum of at least 6 to 10 activities a month that is searchable. The key thing is you have to be visible when people at Salesforce do a search on your name, or when someone recommends nominates you. You have to be found. So I would say first of all, start with answering questions on the Answers boards, get involved in the user group community. And just because you run a user group doesn't mean you're going to be an MVP. You have to be involved in multiple channels, not just one channel.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Good answer. All right, who else has a question here? We don't have any hands raised. No questions in the chat. Oh, Kevin Larson, go ahead.
Hi. This is, a bunch of my folks, the CTO, a couple other people, were able to come to Dreamforce. And, of course, great joy was abounding everywhere, on that point, as we all know happens at Dreamforce.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the issues I have come up with is being the system administrator, the whole, point and click or declarative, and I'm having people saying, hey, I want to create mobile apps. I want to use Lightning. I want to do this. And, of course, as we all sort of know, turning on admin access for everybody to just go ahead and to play even in a sandbox is probably not the best preparation for people just going off because it looks simple. How do people on this call handle when people think that we want to develop and we need system admin access? And, of course, we don't want to necessarily do that. How do you guys handle that?
So the first thing I would say, and this is something that I presented at Dreamforce in the Success Community Theater, is you want to create what I call a focus group. So you want one person to be in charge of all these different projects that are coming from everywhere saying, I want to do this. What you want to do is you want to create a champion, assign someone who can be a champion to manage all these projects, and then you go through a requirements gathering process and say, why do you want to build this? And as you start talking to everybody as to why they want to build it, you'll find that there's probably going to be a commonality amongst the requests, and then you can decide, okay, what makes sense for us to build? Just giving them system admin access is not a good idea. What you want to do is you want to direct them and say, you know what, we're getting a lot of requests like this. What we're going to do is create a joint effort in building something that's going to help everybody and not just one-off. Right now, how many system admins do you guys have? Or how many, currently, how many admins do you have?
Well, see, you're kind of hitting a couple of different areas. The one thing is, it's not so much that keeping control of the projects or getting requirements. That is I'm the system admin. I'm a solo system admin. Okay.
And how many people in your company?
About 100 users.
Okay, so that's a big company. That's not a small company, right?
Right, and it's a nonprofit.
Okay, so the bottom line is when you have a company that's that size, trying to please everybody and give them the access to build applications just doesn't work. It creates more havoc and chaos in your org. And so the best way really is to build a small team of people, bring everybody who wants to build these apps together and really do a brainstorming session and say, why do you want to build this? Tell me your reasons and go to the next. And I guarantee you'll find some commonality which will lead to building a really good, robust application that works for everyone. You do want to stress as an admin and to management that, just because people want it doesn't mean you can give it to them.
Right, and that's exactly where I'm coming from. I know that. I'm sitting right next to you in the same pew because I do not want to do that. But when your COO or someone else says, oh, well, yeah, we're going to have these people do that, it's how do you, again, get that information? So you've given me one point, which is
okay, so let me give you the flip side of that. Let's say you open up, right? What I would do is I know there's a help file that shows you all, like when you give someone a system admin rights, and there was a help file. I'm going to try and find that and put it on the MVP office hours that shows you all the permissions that a system admin gets when you give them the system admin, when you put them in the system admin profile. You kind of want to highlight the ones that are the most dangerous and go back to the COO and say, do you want these people to have access rights to all of this that can cause excessive damage to the system if they make even one simple wrong move because they don't understand how to be a system admin or how to work something?
Yeah,
you kind of like...
And I understand that. I mean, and I really appreciate, because these are the things I come up with, of course, and I'm playing devil's advocate with you, so please bear with me, because then the answer I get is, well, we just tell them not to do it, and of course they won't do it. Well, we all know that doesn't work.
Okay, so the next thing is, like if they say that, then say, you know what, I'm going to give you a weekly audit log of the setup. And then you evaluate who's really following the rules and who's not, And
right.
It's like, unfortunately, it's like the better way to convince a COO is say, you know what, I'm objecting, but here's my alternative plan to my objection. It's like, as a system admin, I do not want to see any damage done to this org. And here's my plan. Let's bring them together. Let's do this. I'm not saying that they can't do it. I'm saying channel it through one place so that there's more conformance. And first of all, compliance. Don't you guys have to follow any kind of compliance rules? Like, I would throw out the compliance card and say, you know what? What happens if something goes out of compliance? Like, who's going to be responsible for that? You want to kind of like, because the one thing I've learned in life is, like, if you're ever going to object to something, come up with a proper solution, an alternative solution, so the objection goes away. And I fully understand you don't want everybody to be a sysadmin. So part of it is go look at the most dangerous things and say, you know what, this is why you don't want to give access. And yeah, you trust them, but what if something happens? How are you going to address compliance issues? And instead, let's do this. Here's a great plan. We meet, we bring all of them together, we find out why they want to build what they build. Let's find a commonality. Let's design a plan to build this so that they can be involved in the building process, but they're not involved in the actual development themselves.
That sounds good. Like I said, that I will definitely, reiterate those. Part of my question came out of philosophy, because we're getting that a lot from Salesforce, and I'm not thinking it's a wrong thing. It just is what people don't know they know is what gets them into trouble when you make it appear so simple. Right, exactly, yeah. Thank you so
you
much
want
for help.
You kind of want to talk about that. You want to talk about that. And remember, the alternative solution is not to cut them out. The alternative solution is saying, you are going to build this, but you're not going to do the coding work. I'm going to do that for you, but it is going to be your application. You're going to be involved in building it, all of it. It's not a good idea to give this level of power to someone who's not even certified. Like, also say, like, how can you know what wrong you're going to do if you're not even certified and you don't know what all can go wrong in the system when you're trying to do it? And if your COO says, I want to do this, even if with all of that, then do you know what? Like, I don't know, like, you might want to try and talk to someone else and say, it's a huge risk. Go to the CEO and say, this is a huge risk, and he still wants to do it. Do you want to take the risk? And if the CEO says yes, then you don't have any leverage there. Then your hands are tied, and you might as well go look for another job.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that because I know I'm not the only one. When I was at Dreamforce and at our user group meeting, that the subject is coming up more and more. And of course, especially after Dreamforce, there are so many new things that are coming out for the mobile app. Create a mobile app. Create this. Create that. That they took the Kool-Aid, but they don't understand what they drank.
The other thing you want to explain to them is, that looks easy, but guess what? There was a lot of work gone behind the scenes, and it's like you don't know until you actually start pulling the onion of how much work was gone in the back end.
Right.
So.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, this is Bill. I wanted to add two things really quick just so you could look at. So what you're explaining is a citizen developer. So if you go to the Dreamforce, there's a lot of videos up there now. Most of the sessions are now making their way up. There's one called Unlocking the Power of Citizen Developers. And so you could share that video with anybody else in your company.
Oh, okay. I wasn't realizing of that one. Okay, thank you. And what else?
So that one goes into a lot of what Deepa was talking about as well, of how to do governance and security on top of it as well. So I would, if I was you, I'd watch that video and then maybe share that. And then like Deepa said, if you lose the battle at the end of the day, even though you shouldn't, you can always set up multiple sandboxes and don't let the sandboxes deploy.
Right.
It's not what I would do, but you could let them play in a sandbox, but don't give that sandbox the ability to deploy.
Right.
So
that was citizen developer. That's the keyword in the session name?
Yeah. The name of the session is Unlocking the Power of Citizen Developers.
Thank you.
Who did that session?
Does not say on the page I'm on right now.
Okay. Can you post a link on the chat?
Yep, will do.
If I could offer one other thing too, we had a similar situation in a previous organization where it was a very everybody wanted to be helpful kind of mentality, and so the program we put into place was twofold. One, to the earlier comments, as the system admin, you kind of need everybody's trust. So if you're always putting up walls, you have issues. So we definitely had our CIO send the message of why decisions were being made, so that we didn't look like the bad guys. There was two admins that had to kind of deliver the message. But the other thing we did was we had a pretty regular sequence where any time somebody wanted to play, we'd build a sandbox, a dev org, and then we would connect it with a change set integration path. And that way, if they played with something and they really came up with something great, we could very easily bring it into our process by a change set to our standard sandbox and move it along if we wanted to. But it kind of gave them everything that we had without ever having a risk of them breaking something, and they could connect to it with their iPhone and everything else too. So it worked really well, and then we still looked like the heroes because we were enabling versus putting up a wall.
That sounds great. Thank you.
And just one other thing. You had mentioned that you're a nonprofit. Are you using the nonprofit server pack as well?
No, we actually have a managed package. We're thinking of, we're pretty much, let me put it this way. Disclosure, I can't do Safe Harbor because I'm not part of Salesforce, but we're looking very strongly at NGO Connect.
Okay, yeah, I just brought that up in case you were using it, and in which case a user of the nonprofit server pack is completely different than an admin, so they wouldn't necessarily know all the quirks of it. So that would be something else to throw out there.
That's a great thing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's good stuff. All right, we have I'm going to hopefully say this right. Donna, do you have your hand raised?
Yes. Hi, how are you? And yeah, you said it right. It's Donna.
Awesome. Go ahead. What's your question?
Hi, guys. I have a trigger question, actually. So the consulting team that helped us deploy Salesforce has a trigger in place that is currently when an opportunity is cloned and that opportunity happens to have a schedule with it. When the clone opportunity is created, the amount field is doubled. and it only duplicates the line items that have a schedule with it. When I try to contact Salesforce, they pretty much said that it was the trigger causing it. However, I'm not great with coding and triggers at the moment, so I'm not sure how to tackle it. When I was looking at it, I have a feeling it has something to do with, the trigger old, trigger new variable to it, so I'm not sure how to address that, how to go about it, where do I start, or anything like that. I can post the trigger. Do you want me to do that on the chat?
Hi, this is Daniel. A couple things come to mind, or one thing that comes to mind with this. It might be something to do with your triggers. You may have multiple triggers in place that are doing something there. I've seen where if you load, so what I'm thinking is you may have, like, so when you clone your opportunity, the schedules get cloned, but then you might have a trigger that's also creating product schedules for you automatically, and so it's duplicating it. But you're not going to see it in the UI because the dates are the same. I've actually seen this with not with triggers, but with data load. So we had a data load where somebody data loaded, thought they were replacing the schedule because it had the same date, but they were actually data loading additional schedules in. And you couldn't see it in the UI, but if you ran reports on it, or if you totaled up the total amount on the schedules, then you would see double or triple numbers. So, do you know how to query? The schedule, the opportunity line item schedules object for those opportunities?
I've not done it before.
Okay, so that would be the first. That would be the first thing I'd look at and see if you actually are getting multiple schedules for each date. So, the easiest thing would be to probably just use. Well, there's a number of ways you can query. I would probably start with Developer Console. That's under your setup menu. Like if you click on your name and then there's a Developer Console there, then you can query for a list and see what you've got. But but yeah, if you want, I think this one might be another one to kind of look at offline or look at the code and see what you get. But I would say first step would be to see if you are getting duplicate schedules, and if you are, then start looking at what triggers you have and see if they are in fact making the duplicates.
Okay. I'm interested to see how it looks once I query the schedules. But when I submitted the case, Salesforce was pretty adamant that it was this one particular trigger that was causing the issue.
Well, it could be, and the reason why that I think it's doing is because it's duplicating the schedules that they have the same date, so you can't see it in the UI.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But yeah, post it in the office hours, and you can, if you can, either mention me or I'll try to look at it later, see if we can find it. So it's I'm Daniel Hoechst. It's HOECHST.
Okay. HOECHST?
Yep, that's right.
Got it. All right, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Daniel. All right. So let's see. Who else? We don't have any hands raised or any questions in the chat. Anybody want to just speak up? Steve. Quick to the trigger. All right, Steve. Good question.
Hey, guys. In a meeting that just happened yesterday, right now our salespeople fill out expense reports and they just do an Excel spreadsheet, and then it gets put into our QuickBooks to reimburse them, and it doesn't give us a lot of visibility on tracking back expenses to accounts and then looking at revenue and all those kind of things. So I quickly, just to show them what we could do, put together a custom object that they could enter in their sales report information the same as they would in an Excel spreadsheet, basically, and they could do it from their smartphone. And so I can then export that data and import it into QuickBooks. So I pretty much have that whole part mapped out. They also want to implement an approval process prior to travel so that the salesperson would just fill in a couple of fields. Where are you traveling? What accounts are you going to see? and that would go to our Chief Revenue Officer to approve it. In that approval process, most of our people, when they travel, they'll see multiple accounts. So I'm just thinking I'd need to have different lookup fields that would say, kind of, account 1, account 2, account 3, and maybe put 5. We don't normally, see more than 3 or 4 in a given trip. But my thought was then, what we want to be able to do for something like airfare, rental car, hotel, when they're entering it into their expense report, that's covering the entire trip. And so I thought during the approval process, if I'm able to generate a unique trip ID that would say, okay, they're going to visit these accounts, and it could be multiple accounts, that when they're filling in their sales expense report, that they could reference that trip ID. And so say that they had a $300 hotel bill, and the travel request showed that they were going to visit 3 clients, that I would then be able to allocate $100 of that hotel expense to those 3 clients. And I'm not sure, because I'm still relatively new as an admin, if I can reference like a trip ID from one object in another object. Does that make sense of what I'm trying to accomplish?
Yes, it does. The thing is, are you when you build the lookups to the accounts, those are lookup fields, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what that does is that will create like related lists for those 3 on each account. Mm-hmm. And you want a calculation that takes that 300 and divides it into those 3 accounts, right?
Well, I figured I could do that part of it in a report or something, or in a custom field.
No, so here's the thing. Reports doesn't allow you to do that much formulas, right? Like you only get formulas at a summary level in reports.
Okay.
So my first thought process, and I'm not, because I've not seen your model, I don't know how quite like this will look like, but my first thought is, if you build a formula field, you don't have to display it on the custom object, but in the custom object, if you have a formula field that says, okay, here's my hotel expense, and you only build this for certain type of expenses, you don't have to build it for all of them. And you say, okay, if my hotel was 300 and if 2 of my accounts were populated, then you first want to divide that by 2 so you get the equal. And then what you would need to do is build a formula at the account level or show it on the account in the related list, that field, so you can see that for that account it was that amount. Now, as far as rolling up those numbers at the account number, is that what you want to do, like roll up those numbers for, like the entire trip for each account? Like, I mean, how detailed want to go? Because I think that would require coding, wouldn't it? Either Daniel or Marty? Are you guys on here?
Yeah, Deepa, I'm here.
Okay.
I just want to say, I agree that it will probably, I'm thinking it could require a little bit of code or something like roll-up helper. There's the way that it's described.
Roll-up helper, yeah.
My worry is that the way that it's described, I guess it works fine if you just limit it to 5 accounts. I'm not sure if that's I guess firstly, if I'm looking at that, my first inclination would be to make that a related list, although I do understand that changes how it behaves in Salesforce 1. But that would be, from an architecture perspective, I think that would be a little bit better, and then try to build, adjust the UI
same thing.
Yep, agreed.
And then the other thing I'm going to say is if you look at the amount of time that you're going to spend in building and development, you might also want to look at products that are on the AppExchange. Sometimes it's easier to bring in a third-party product than try to develop all of that. And I know that Aptos has a solution that you can use. I'm not so sure about Zuora, but I know Aptos has that where you can manage the expenses and all of that and have it roll up to the correct accounts. It sounds simple, but I don't think this is as simple. Like, it's simple to do the calculations in the object itself, but rolling it up, I would try with the roll-up helper first, and if that doesn't help you, then you might need to do coding, and then in that case, I would say try looking at a existing solution on the AppExchange.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the roll-up helper. Is that a feature that's part of Salesforce, or is that an app?
It's an app on the AppExchange that allows you to roll up fields beyond the Salesforce, because Salesforce has limitations on how many roll-up fields you can have, which is 5 if I'm correct, right guys?
Yep.
Yeah. You have 5 per object, so it limits you on how many you can roll up. And sometimes when you're doing complex calculations like this, you'll figure out that you need more than one roll-up field to even get to the final calculations.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. All right. Who else has a question here? Okay, Jana?
Hi. I have a question about, we're trying to set up, we have a separate department in our company that has a different sales process than the majority part of our company. So it's going to be a smaller group. And I'm a newer admin, but we're trying to set up a separate, using our Salesforce, the same org, we're trying to set up a separate area for them that will track them. So one thought is, someone at Dreamforce actually mentioned this to me, was to create a new field for that's going to have, that would identify which sort of department or group every account would belong to. And then just to make that like a multi-pick list where an account could belong to one or the other, or if there was something that was shared, then you could select both, and then just to set up separate profiles and record types. Does that make sense? I just wanted to confirm that that's kind of the right track.
Okay, multi-select pick list is a dangerous zone to get into. So let me ask you this. Have you looked into the standard opportunity, record type, page layout, and the opportunity sales process that allows you to segregate the, like record types allow you to segregate the pick list. So if you look at the stages that an opportunity goes through, one division is going to have different stages compared to the other, right?
Yeah, and actually the larger issue though is the data will be really different. So they actually want to keep the data separate, like it's sort of two different companies, but it's the same company. So they want the 2 different sales data to be separate.
It will be separate because the record types differentiates that, right? So that you can have a reporting that's separate, all of that, right? Now, I'm still trying to kind of understand exactly like how they overlap. That's what my question is. How do they overlap?
Yeah, so, the person who mentioned that to me just kind of threw that out. It's possible that they wouldn't overlap. I have to find out more information from how the departments want to actually use their data. So it's possible that they would just always forever be separate. But I think that was suggested in case there was something where they were going to share data. But if it's dangerous and sort of best practice would be to just keep them separate, then I'm okay with that. And you're saying that I wouldn't have to create a new field to do that. I could just do that through the record type in the opportunity. And but on the account level, the accounts would be separate though. So is that okay too for the other departments?
Yeah. So the thing is, you're gonna have, like it seems like you have 2 separate sales cycles. So are the account reps overlapping, or they are different? Like they're separate in their separate groups?
They'll be different.
Okay. So you don't need, if you really want to, you can create a record type for accounts, but that's not necessarily necessary. At the account level, you can drive this with just a division, kind of a pick list field that says, you know what, this account, the type is this division, and then this account, the type is the other division. And if the reps are going to be separate, you're going to kind of get in the reports that the owner of that account is in this division and the owner of the other account is in the other division. So that kind of segregates it. Now, in an event that, let's say, and this is a benefit of record types within the account, that in an event, if an account is going to have both sales processes, the record types will differentiate the opportunities. But if not, literally, you just have one account, you differentiate the divisions by the type field, like whatever you call that, division, department, whatever you call that, that's a single select pick list, which will segregate the two accounts, but it will still be in all accounts, so you're not creating a record type. And then for opportunities, you have record types, and based on the profiles, so what you could do is put those people in different profiles, and then have their default record types default to those two separate sales processes. So when one division creates their opportunities, it defaults to their record type and creates the opportunities with that sales process. And the other one, when they create opportunities, it uses their default profile and creates the opportunities for their sales process. And it's all in one place, but it's just driven by record types and profiles.
Okay, I think that answers my question then. So just to summarize, so the suggestion I was given is actually a good suggestion at the account level, and instead of multi-pick, just the two, either or, and then do the record types at the opportunity level. Okay, great. That really helps.
And if there is ever an overlap, so if there is ever an overlap, you know, like one good thing to do is use account teams and opportunity teams, you know, like the sales teams, like bring people in through that so you're sharing, but you're still keeping the processes different.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. Now, a quick question though. So for the reports though, for rolling up, so I guess I think the question was then, for the reporting on the account level, the president of everything would want to see both sets of data, and might want them aggregated. I don't think so, just because the data is different, but it's possible that they could want them aggregated. So for that purpose,
so what you do is when you run your report, you do you summarize it by that division or department or whatever you create. So you run a report against accounts, have the numbers roll up to the accounts from the opportunities. And so you start with the account. Your first summary is going to be those divisions, and then the rest of the summaries. And if you need more than 3 summaries, you create a matrix report. But that will segregate the numbers by the accounts that belong to which division. So you'll be able to see details underneath.
Yeah, the other thing I would do too is just use the role hierarchy to separate that business out from a roll-up standpoint, right? So that it rolls up, and even then the president can drill down within a report based upon that role hierarchy and easily see what opportunities are under those 2 different divisions, and do some sorting on it as well. That's
okay, great. Yeah, so I would just basically have that separate for the role hierarchy. Even though it's just this totally smaller group, it would be at the same level as the main one, right underneath the president. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you both.
Awesome. Thanks, Deepa. Let's see. So we got about 6 minutes left. Anybody want to close us out with a last question? Feel free to jump in.
A slightly technical question.
Sorry, we can't quite hear you. Go ahead, though.
Okay, is this better?
A little bit. Still a little faint.
Okay, let me take off my headset and try. Is this any better?
Sure.
Okay. I've got a question about, it might be slightly technical. I don't know if this is in the scope or not, but I'm trying to figure out how to do pagination on a Visualforce page. And I mean, I see some examples out there, but it seems a lot of coding it out, and I'm probably from a declarative, background and got some hands-on with Visualforce and Apex. But is there some kind of simple solution? I would have thought it would be more simpler to do than it seems it is with what I'm searching online.
Marty, Daniel, you guys have any thoughts there on pagination?
I mean, I guess I'll take a stab at it. I mean, with pagination, you're really, if you're building it out, you just need to really pay attention to two things, and that's the limit and the offset. So those two parameters in your SOQL query will control what records get pulled and from where. So pagination, all it really is you have a controller method, say like you do a next page action, that just moves the offset by whatever your limit is. So like if your page size is 10, you would put 10 into your limit clause, and then your offset would just be 10, 20, 30, 40, and your next page, previous page actions would just adjust that number appropriately.
I see some of the standard Salesforce pages. Like for example, if you're looking at the list of Apex classes, that has a pretty nice alphabetical thing where you can click on A or N or whatever, or you can click on all. So building that is a lot of code. There's no declarative way to do that. Is that right?
I mean, Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's no component that allows you to just get a nice pagination thing like the Salesforce UI. So I'm pretty sure you have to build that yourself.
I see. Okay. And if I may ask, one more question, something I was working on here. Well, I guess never mind. I think I probably can research some more online. I don't want to get too technical on this call. Probably try to research some of it online and look for examples.
Have you tried posting on the Stack Exchange your question?
So, well, actually, I Googled and I did get some hits, and I would have thought that this would be simpler to do than it is, or there might be a declarative way of doing that, because I think that probably is a
Well, Visualforce is coding, so there's no declarative in Visualforce.
Right. So, I guess my question was, is there a declarative way of doing that instead of a Visualforce way?
And you're talking about doing what? Adding, is it pagination?
Yeah, exactly.
So you want page
like
breaks.
1,000 record, yeah, display, the first 10, and then be able to hit next or something.
Yeah, that's got to be Visualforce.
Okay.
I mean, your standard out-of-the-box way to do that is just to use list views and an object.
Yeah, or list views.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I didn't think of that. Yeah, so use list views and that does allow you to edit the records too. I know that. So, all right, okay, that's a good thought. Let me look into that some more. All right. Can I ask one more question? Since you guys triggered a good, workaround, maybe you might have some workaround for this. So this is a Visualforce email template, and think of a master detail relationship. So I have a email going out for an opportunity, and I have the lines listed, and the lines are not coming out in a proper sorted format. Seems to be pretty random. Any ideas or suggestions on that?
That just sounds like you got to put an order by in the query.
Okay, so I'll have to do based on the controller requery the line items, because what I was doing was referring the master level object opportunity, for example. And then for the lines, I was just referring to the related relationship.
Right, and you can put a different order by in the subquery.
Well, I was not doing it via query for the opportunity line, so I was just referring the lines via the relationship and listing the fields that way. So when the opportunities.
Can I ask you a question? What is your business case in doing what you're doing, since there are list views in Salesforce?
You're talking about the original question again?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, this is going to be like a community page, and then the users will have some option of going in there and then selecting some preferences. So there will be a list of records, and they can select whether they want to receive notifications on that.
I'm sorry, this is Marty. I actually have to run, but I'll actually post a message to the MVP office hours groups about this shortly after the call.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Take care.
Bye, Marty.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, great question. And yeah, if you post that to Stack Exchange or the Answers community, feel free to cross post a link on the MVP office hours group, and we can get some eyes on it and try to help you out there. But we are right over 2 o'clock here, so to be mindful of everybody's time, we'll go ahead and stop it there. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Great questions, good conversation today. Hopefully this was helpful. And as always, if you have any feedback, suggestions for us, definitely let us know, and we'll try to incorporate it. With
All
that,
right.
MVP Office Hours. Have a good weekend.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.